He came back to the neighborhood to sell the debris of his past, but she still lived there, among the same ruins, planting hope where he only saw abandonment. The street still smelled like toasted bread and wet earth, but to Kerem Arslan, it had no soul left. The black car stopped in front of his mother's old house, and the first thing he saw was the chipped bricks, the fading paint, and a dead plant still hanging as a witness of better times. Kerem stepped out slowly. His dark suit looked like an insult in that place where clothes hung between windows like battle flags. People watched him sideways. Some recognized him. Others only sensed that this man with a stern face and tired eyes came from a world that had always ignored them. Inside the house, the dust didn't ask permission. Everything was just as his mother had left it. Crooked frames, a table stained with old cups, a broken mirror. But what hurt the most was finding the radio still playing faintly, the battery barely alive, as if someone had wanted to keep something going even if it was just silence. He had come to sell, nothing else. That's what he told his lawyer. Liquidate the property, close the chapter, return to his life of glass offices and soulless meetings. But he hadn't counted on her. Hande. She stood outside the community center, right where a bakery used to be, wearing a long skirt, rolled up, shirt sleeves, a baby in one arm, organizing a group of women with the other. When she saw him, she didn't stop. She looked at him like recognizing a shadow from the past, like she already knew that this man didn't come to help, but to forget. "That's Kerem Arslan," whispered a young woman nearby. "I don't care who he is. If he came to look, let him look, but don't let him get in the way." Kerem walked over with the stiffness of a man not used to being challenged. Hande didn't even bother to greet him. "This was my mother's property," he said, pointing with his chin toward the center. "Not anymore. The city granted this space to the community 2 years ago. That's illegal. I'm the heir, and we are the ones who cleaned up this neighborhood. After you let it rot." It was the first time Kerem felt small since he climbed his first podium in business. That woman didn't just have no fear, she had no respect for him either. That night, he returned to the old house with an unopened bottle of wine and fists marked by tension. He sat on the floor, surrounded by scattered papers and orphaned cups. That's when he found it, a small box, wrapped in a hand-embroidered cloth. Inside were letters, at least 30, all signed in the same trembling handwriting. His mother's to my son, who stopped listening but never stopped hurting me. Kerem froze. Silence now had a weight that crushed him. That day Kerem found something hidden among the remains of the house. A box of letters his mother had written, and he had never received. Sometimes, the words we never heard are the ones that haunt us the longest. The first letter smelled of old paper and memory. His mother's handwriting trembled, as if the words had been written from the edge of a long-held grief. "Kerem, my son, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to keep talking to you, even if only through inked. You hurt me, not for what you did, but for what you couldn't see." Kerem sat on the dusty floor of that house, which now felt more like a mausoleum than a home. One by one, he opened the letters. Each word pressed heavier on his chest. His mother didn't blame him. She didn't accuse. She missed him. She named him with affection, recalled him as a boy, told him simple things. The tree in the yard bloomed late this year. The bread in the market didn't taste the same. Winter hurt more since he left. And then came a sentence that stung different. "The little girl came again today. The one with the green eyes. She looks at me like she knows I'm something more than just an old woman. Like she's waiting for me to say something I don't know how to say. A little girl who." Kerem frowned, rereading the line. His mother spoke of her with tenderness, familiarity, and then, in a later letter, "I wonder if I should tell you, but maybe I don't have the right. Sometimes, love is born in silence, like Layla. Leyla. The name clung to his thoughts, like a song he couldn't remember the lyrics to. It sounded familiar, distant. That afternoon, without knowing why, Kerem walked back to the community center, and she was there, Hande, leaning against a wall, watching kids play with a deflated ball. Her hair was tied loosely, her shirt stained with flour, and her face carried the kind of beauty that doesn't come from youth, but from strength. Kerem walked over, didn't speak at first, just held out the letter. "What's this?" she asked, not taking it. My mother. She wrote letters I never got. In one of them, she mentions a girl with green eyes named Leyla. Her face changed. Where did you read that name? She asked in a quiet voice. Here. Who was she? Hande walked a few steps into the center, like she needed a wall to lean on. Before answering, Layla was my daughter. Kerem's heart dropped. Hande's voice barely held steady. She died 3 years ago, in a fire. No one investigated much. We weren't important enough for the justice system. Kerem looked down. My mother knew her. I don't know how or why, but she knew her. Hande stared at him. Her gaze was hard, but behind it, something else. Fear. What are you looking for, Kerem? The truth. Even if I don't like it. She didn't answer, just stepped back. Then get ready, because when you look for the truth, someone always loses something. That night, Kerem returned to the house. The letter with Layla's name trembled between his fingers. He searched through drawers, books, papers, until he found a small, wrinkled photo tucked inside a novel. His mother, smiling, next to a girl with dark hair and green eyes. On the back, written in a shaky script, with Layla, the spring of my soul, Hande's daughter, and maybe, his too. In that letter, his mother spoke of a girl with green eyes that Kerem couldn't remember ever meeting. What if the past held a love that lived in silence? And a daughter no one dared to name. Kerem couldn't sleep. The name Layla echoed in every room of the house. He replayed the photo in his mind, his mother, smiling with that girl, her eyes too green to be coincidence. He tried to remember. Was there ever a moment, a woman, a story forgotten in the blur of his old life? And then, like a flicker, he saw it, years ago. A visit to the neighborhood, a one-night return, a brief connection with a girl whose name he never asked. Just a moment, nothing more. At least, that's what he told himself. The memory hit him like cold water. Could that have been Hande? He returned to the community center, this time walking not like a man with answers, but like one with too many questions. Hande was in the kitchen, handing out plates to children, her sleeves rolled up, her hair damp from washing. She didn't flinch when he entered, but she didn't smile either. We need to talk, he said. She nodded and stepped outside with him. You think I don't already know what you're going to say? She asked, arms crossed. Layla might have been mine, she was mine. That's all that matters. Hande, please, don't please me. You were never there. You don't get to show up with questions when the answers cost me my life. But what if I didn't know? What if it was hidden from me? She stared at him, her jaw clenched, her eyes red, not from crying, but from holding it all in. Then, we'll find out. But not for you, for her. That evening, Hande gave him a small plastic bag, inside a hairbrush. I kept it after she died, for reasons I didn't even understand. Now I know why. He looked at it as if it were made of glass. I'll get the DNA test. But if the results confirm it, I don't know if I can forgive you. Not because you failed, but because I'm tired of men showing up late and expecting to be part of what they didn't build. He nodded. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to know. She didn't soften. Then prepare yourself, because if you are her father, you'll have to carry that with you for the rest of your life. A week passed. They didn't speak. The test was underway. Kerem busied himself at the center, fixing windows, sorting clothes, painting walls. He didn't ask about Layla. He didn't ask about Hande. But every night, he placed the photo of the little girl beside his bed. And every morning, he whispered, I hope I was yours. Even if I didn't know it. The envelope arrived on a Thursday. Duna. Aziz received it first and placed it quietly on Hande's desk. She didn't touch it, just stared at the name, her hands trembling more than she'd let anyone see. When arrived, she handed him the envelope. You open it, only if you're ready. You think ready exists for something like this? He opened it slowly. His eyes scanned the line under the red stamp. 99.7% genetic match. Probability of paternity. Extremely high. He couldn't breathe. The paper dropped from his fingers. She was mine, he whispered. She was always mine, Hande replied, without anger, just grief. And I missed everything. She nodded. You did. He looked at her. Can I be part of this? Somehow. She shook her head. You already are. Whether you want it or not. A test result doesn't give you a daughter. It gives you a truth. And truths, sometimes, arrive too late to be held. Opening hook. Some truths hurt more than loss, like discovering that not everything you lost was ever yours to begin with. Kerem read the test again and again. And again. As if the number, 99.7%, might change if he stared hard enough. But it didn't. Layla had been his daughter, and he had never held her, not once. He didn't cry. Not because he wasn't broken, but because he didn't feel like he deserved the right to grieve that night. He walked aimlessly through the neighborhood. Children played with makeshift toys. Neighbors greeted each other through open windows. Life happened, indifferent to his silent collapse. The next morning, he showed up at the community center with no words. Hande saw him. Her eyes narrowed. He was thinner, paler. "Did you read it again?" she asked. Yes. And she had your eyes, and mine, and everything I wish I had known how to protect. Hande lowered her gaze. For the first time, there was no blame in her voice, just fatigue. "Didn't know, I get it. But that doesn't change the hole she left behind." "It doesn't," he replied. "But maybe we can honor it." She looked at him, confused. "How?" "Tell me who she was. All of her. Every version. I want to know her. Even if it's too late." They spent hours that day, talking. Not like lovers, not even like allies. Like two people building a portrait of someone neither of them would ever get back. Hande showed him Layla's drawings, her notebooks, her favorite spot behind the community center where she used to read under the sun. Kerem touched her belongings like sacred relics. Later, Dona's eyes came in quietly. "I forgot to give you this," she said, placing a sealed envelope on the table. Hande opened it slowly. It was a letter, Layla's handwriting, purple pen, childlike, hopeful, "To my dad. Even if I don't know who you are." Hande covered her mouth. Kerem froze. He unfolded the paper and read aloud. "I think maybe you're real. Even if nobody tells me your name. Sometimes I imagine you walking by the street and not knowing I'm yours. That's okay. I forgive you. Maybe one day you'll find this and know that I wasn't angry, just waiting." Kerem fell to his knees, not from pain, from shame. From love. From everything he could never give her. That evening, he painted a mural on the wall of the center. It was Layla, not as she died, but as she might have been, smiling, alive, surrounded by color and green. Hande watched from a distance, no tears, no words, just a small aching smile. The DNA said she was his, but it was her words, her letter, that made him a father. Some kisses don't come from love, they come from memory, from wounds, from the unbearable need to be held without words. It had rained all night. Buenos Souls was wrapped in gray, streets dripped like silent weeping. And inside the community center, Kerem stayed until dawn, sitting in front of the mural. Her mural, Layla smiling from another dimension he'd never enter. Hande arrived early. She hadn't slept either. Her hands carried a thermos of coffee and something else, an uneasiness, a tenderness she didn't want to show. She set the cup down in front of him. "You didn't go home." "Home's not a place for me anymore." She didn't answer. They sat in silence, the kind of silence that only two broken people can share. Not awkward, not cold, just necessary. "Do you think she forgave me?" he asked eventually. Hande looked at him, long, steady. "She never blamed you. That was all mine. But the truth, I blamed you because I had nowhere else to put the pain." Kerem nodded. "Blame me all you want. Just don't shut me out." She raised an eyebrow. "You don't get to ask for places in people's hearts you abandoned." A long beat. His jaw tightened. Then quietly, "Maybe I didn't know how to stay, but I came back. Not for redemption, for her, for you. That you lingered. Not romantic, not sweet, raw. Real." She turned away, walked to the other end of the room, but Kerem followed, stopped inches behind her. "Don't," she whispered. He didn't touch her. He just said, "I miss her in a way that makes it hard to breathe. And you're the only one who knows how that feels." She turned slowly. Their eyes met. No defenses, no armor, just two souls standing naked in their pain. Hande reached up first, touched his face, not like a lover, like someone searching for a memory in unfamiliar skin. And then the kiss came. Not soft, not delicate. A kiss that tasted like absence, like apology, like to ghosts learning how to live again. Afterward, she pulled away first, wiped her mouth, not with shame, with strength. I don't want your pity, Kerem. I don't give pity. I give pieces of myself I don't even recognize anymore. That's not love, I know, and yet, neither moved. Outside, the sky was clearing. Inside, nothing had healed, but something had cracked open. And sometimes that's enough. It wasn't a kiss of love, but the kind of kiss that happens when pain meets pain, and they decide to hold each other for a while. Some stories are never told until silence becomes heavier than the secret. Days passed. Hande avoided the center. Kerem didn't insist. Not because he didn't want to, because he knew her silence was sacred. Instead, he stayed behind, helping the kids, fixing broken chairs, painting walls that no longer felt foreign. One morning, Lucia, Hande's teenage daughter, walked up to him, holding something wrapped in a faded cloth. She told me to burn it. I see you didn't. No, I think you need to read it. She left it on his lap, walked away. It was a letter, yellowed at the corners. The handwriting was unmistakable. Layla's. He opened it with hands that trembled. The words bled into him like smoke into lungs. Papa, I know you left because you thought it was better for me, but I never needed your absence. I needed your confusion, your tears, your hands holding mine, even if they were shaking. I needed you, flawed and scared, but present. Maybe you'll come back when it's too late. I still hope not, because the only thing worse than being left is being forgotten. Kerem folded the letter like it had burned him. Outside, Hande watched from a distance. Tears ran down her face, not because he was reading the letter, but because she had read it years ago and kept it hidden. That night, he knocked on her door. You lied to me. I protected you. There's a difference. She waited for me. We all did. And you let me think she died hating me. Hande didn't speak. He stepped closer. Why? Her voice cracked like dry wood. Because it was easier to be angry at you than admit I still loved the man who left us. Because if I hated you, I didn't have to miss you. Kerem's eyes turned red, but no tears came. He'd learned long ago how to cry on the inside. I came back to build something, not to reopen graves. You didn't reopen anything, Kerem. You just found the part of me I buried with her. A pause. Then she whispered, what do we do now? He reached into his jacket, pulled out a page from his notebook, a plan, a proposal, not romantic, structural, we build something. For her. For us. For those who won't survive another abandonment. Hande looked at the paper. A center for grief. No. A house of memory. Where sorrow isn't shame. Where people come to speak the names they're not allowed to mention. Where grief is honored, not hidden. She folded the page. You're not forgiven, Kerem. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for one more chance to stay. That night, Hande sat alone, reading Layla's letter again. This time, not to cry, but to remember. She didn't sleep, but she didn't hurt the same way either. Some absences are filled not by returning, but by staying long enough to rebuild what never got to live. They didn't build a monument. They built a wound, with windows, so others could walk through their pain without shame. Weeks passed since Hande agreed, not with forgiveness, but with dignity. She didn't forget the past. She simply refused to let it own her future. Together, they started La Casa de la Memoria, the house of memory. Not a shelter, not a center, a place where people could come with grief and leave with breath. No fees, no questions, just tea, a chair, a space, and someone willing to listen without judging. Lucia painted the entrance. Grief is not weakness. It's the price of having loved. One morning, a woman arrived, skin like parchment, eyes dry from years of holding back. She sat down, whispered, my son would have been 29 today, but I'm told I need to move on. Hande simply held her hand. Here, we don't move on. We carry. She cried for the first time in years, and left a note in the memory box. For once, I was not invisible. Kerem watched all of it like someone reading a sacred text. He didn't interfere. He simply stayed. Fixed a broken window, brewed coffee, cleaned the leaves from the rooftop. One afternoon, Hande found him staring at an old photo of Layla. Do you ever think about what she would have become? He nodded. Every morning, every night, in the silence between steps, leaned beside him. She would have loved this place, the quiet, the smell of coffee, the unspoken forgiveness in the walls. She would have painted every room pink. He smiled and made us tea, terribly. They both laughed, soft, sad, but alive. A week later, the media found them. A blurry photo of Kerem helping a grieving man sparked whispers online. Is the ex-millionaire now a therapist? Is this penance or politics? Reporters came. Cameras followed. Hande refused to speak. But Kerem stood at the gate and said, I'm not here to explain grief. I'm just trying to carry mine with less cruelty. They left. Eventually. Not with a story, but with silence they didn't know how to film. That night, Hande walked into the kitchen. Kerem was washing dishes. You don't have to stay, you know, and go where? Where there's no ghost of her, no trace of you. She looked at him, not with doubt, but with an ache that only trust can bring. I don't want you to stay because of guilt. Then let me stay because of love. Silence. A breath. Say it again, she whispered. He turned, dried his hands, stepped closer. Love. She closed her eyes, for once, letting it land without armor. Some houses are built with walls, others with wounds stitched carefully, with love that refuses to disappear. They didn't build a monument, they built a wound with windows, so others could walk through their pain without shame. Weeks passed since Hande agreed, not with forgiveness, but with dignity. She didn't forget the past. She simply refused to let it own her future. Together, they started La Casa de la Memoria, the house of memory, not a shelter, not a center, a place where people could come with grief and leave with breath. No fees, no questions, just tea, a chair, a space, and someone willing to listen without judging. Lucia painted the entrance. Grief is not weakness, it's the price of having loved. One morning, a woman arrived, skin like parchment, eyes dry from years of holding back. She sat down, whispered, my son would have been 29 today, but I'm told I need to move on. Hande simply held her hand. Here, we don't move on, we carry. She cried for the first time in years, and left a note in the memory box. For once, I was not invisible. Kerem watched all of it like someone reading a sacred text. He didn't interfere. He simply stayed, fixed a broken window, brewed coffee, cleaned the leaves from the rooftop. One afternoon, Hande found him staring at an old photo of Layla. Do you ever think about what she would have become? He nodded. Every morning, every night, in the silence between steps, she leaned beside him. She would have loved this place, the quiet, the smell of coffee, the unspoken forgiveness in the walls. She would have painted every room pink. He smiled and made us tea. Terribly, they both laughed. Soft, sad, but alive. A week later, the media found them. A blurry photo of Kerem helping a grieving man sparked whispers online. Is the ex-millionaire now a therapist? Is this penance or politics? Reporters came. Cameras followed. Hande refused to speak, but Kerem stood at the gate and said, I'm not here to explain grief. I'm just trying to carry mine with less cruelty. They left, eventually, not with a story, but with silence. They didn't know how to film. That night, Hande walked into the kitchen. Kerem was washing dishes. You don't have to stay, you know, and go where there's no ghost of her, no trace of you. She looked at him, not with doubt, but with an ache that only trust can bring. I don't want you to stay because of guilt. Then let me stay because of love. Silence. A breath. Say it again, she whispered. He turned, dried his hands, stepped closer. Love. She closed her eyes. For once, letting it land without armor. Some houses are built with walls, others with wounds stitched carefully, with love that refuses to disappear. She hadn't laughed in months, but that morning, the sound escaped her like a child, invited, innocent, and necessary. The sun returned to La Casa de la Memoria. Not brighter, just softer. One afternoon, as Hande watered the basil Mateo had once planted, a girl arrived bare, 20, holding a guitar case and a bruised heart. Her name was Daria. She didn't speak much at first, but the way she held the guitar was how a mother holds a child she's not ready to let go of. Hande invited her in. You don't have to explain, just rest, and she did. For 3 days, Daria slept on the porch couch, played nothing, said nothing. Then, on the 4th night, during a storm, she started to sing, a lullaby, broken, trembling, Kerem stood in the hallway. He didn't interrupt, he wept quietly. Hande entered the room after. That was beautiful. Daria looked up. That was goodbye. I wrote it for my sister. She passed 2 winters ago. She used to braid my hair before school. You don't have to say goodbye here. You can say still with me. That night, they all ate together. No one talked about grief, but somehow, it was everywhere and nowhere at once. Kerem started painting again. He hadn't touched a brush in 10 years. Hande found him in the old shed with canvases and silence. Why now? She asked. Because grief needs an exit. And words don't always open the right door. She smiled. Just don't paint me thinner than I am. Impossible. You're all soul. I'd never get it right. They shared a look, not flirtation, recognition. One morning, a knock on the door. It was Lucia, grown, glowing, and holding a child. His name is Matteo. I didn't want to tell you in a letter. Hande's knees buckled softly. She held the baby in her arms, whispering, I see him in his eyes. Kerem touched the boy's cheek. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. Lucia shook her head. You came when I could see you clearly. That matters more. That night, Hande sang to the child, the same lullaby Daria had sung. And for a moment, time folded. Pain, memory, and love all sat at the same table, drinking quiet tea. Grief stayed, but so did music. And when one paused to breathe, the other whispered, I'm still here, but I won't stay forever. They tried to bury her, but she had roots, and some roots crack even the hardest marble. Matteo's memory was no longer an echo, it was soiled. Everything in Los Dores, the new name of the expanded community center, bore his fingerprint, but nothing carried his face. That was Hande's request. He didn't want statues. He wanted people to stand. Let's give him what he gave us, dignity without applause. The projects grew like vines. The literacy classes, the pop-up kitchens, the teen mentorships. And now, a network of community midwives. Hande trained them herself. She taught more than technique. She taught how to hold a hand, without condescendence. Kerem had become the quiet architect behind the scenes. He met with city councils. He fought for funding. He drafted policies with ink-stained shirts and sleepless eyes. And yet, at dusk, he always returned to the barrio. Tour. One evening, as she cooked lentils, he leaned in. Do you ever get tired of being needed? Hande stirred the pot. I used to, but now I think being needed is just another form of being loved. Kerem smiled. Then let me love you like that too, not with fireworks, with presents. She didn't answer, but she served him the bigger portion. Trouble returned, as it always does. A new mayor, cold eyes, clean suits. He ordered an audit on Los Dores. Accusations flew, unlicensed, dangerous, politically motivated. Hande refused to cry. She gathered every worker, every student, every elder who had found shelter under that roof. They stood outside the building for 12 days, silent. Not a chant, not a fight, just bodies that refused to vanish. On the 13th day, a judge ruled in their favor. The center stayed open, but more than that, it stayed sacred. That night, Hande walked into the bedroom. Kerem was folding laundry badly. Do you regret not running for office again? He looked up. The only thing I ever regret is not seeing you sooner. She touched his cheek. I wasn't ready to be seen. They kissed, soft, worn, grateful, no need for passion. Just proof that they were still choosing each other. The system tried to silence her, but she knew something they didn't. When you whisper with truth, even power learns to listen. Wonderful. Let's complete the journey. Here is the final chapter of the Echo of Roots. The greatest loves don't end. They change form. They grow in silence, bloom in the hands of others, and live where names are no longer needed. The season had changed, but she still made coffee for two. Hande woke each morning and placed a cup across from her. Sometimes she sipped both. Other times, she just talked to the empty chair. The neighborhood called her Tia Hande now. Not out of pity, out of legacy. Kerem had passed in silence, a book on his chest, a pencil between his fingers, her name scribbled on a torn note by his side. Thank you for saving what was still human in me. She did not wear black. She wore his shirt, and she wore his mission. The community grieved differently. One boy planted trees. One girl painted a mural of Kerem, no face, just hands open to the sky. Lucia, now a mother, organized a reading circle in his honor. They called it Chapters That Don't End. Hande smiled through her tears. This was what he wanted. Not monuments, movements, movements. Months later, a young leader from another country visited Les Durées. He found Hande sweeping the patio. Use single quotes. Her, she looked up. I'm just someone who stayed. Your story changed mine. No, my truth found yours. That's all. In a small hidden drawer, she kept his last notebook. It wasn't full of plans or strategies. It held poems about the rain, about her hair, about forgiveness. She read one aloud by the stove one night. If I return, I'll come as wind, to lift the pages you've written with hands you thought were alone. A new building opened in the city, a center for policy shaped by communities. It bore no man's name, but on its foundation stone, 3 words, carved deep: root before glory. One day, a child in the barrio asked her, Abuela, were you ever famous? Hande laughed. No, I was real. That's harder. Do you miss him? She paused. I still set up a place for him, but now I fill it with someone new every time, and that is how love never dies. He left, but planted her heart in soil, and what grew from it were not memories. They were revolutions made of tenderness.